There ain't a better way to bring in the new year than to continue the process of crowning a new national champ. EJ Manuel here to help us do the preview portion of that process. First of the quarterfinals, EJ, last college football game of the calendar year. What's the game within the game between Miami and Ohio State?
Well, the game within the game is the trench warfare in this matchup. You look at Ohio State's offensive line going up against an extremely talented Miami defensive line. Now, the last time Miami played, it was against Texas A&M. They got 7 sacks in that ball game. That's a big deal considering that Ohio State normally does a really good job of protecting Julian Sayin, but they gave up 5 sacks against Indiana. So the big key to slow down an excellent pass rush from the Hurricanes, you get the ball out quick, you allow guys like Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate to make some plays, and then what does that create? The defensive backs of Miami now have to come up and make tackles in space. Not easy to do against those types of receivers.
Yeah, Ohio State racking up nearly 7 yards of prey. That's good for top 15 in all of FBS. Miami holding opponents to 4.5 yards of play. That's good for top 10 in FBS. So the classic case of something got to give. Now, once we get into 2026, full slate of quarterfinal action, 3 of them beginning at noon Eastern on ESPN. Which of those matchups are you most intrigued by?
I'm intrigued by the Orange Bowl. Look, this is a fantastic matchup. I believe the tightest line if you're into the betting odds. But I look at Oregon's quarterback, Dante Moore, against this excellent defense of Texas Tech. Texas Tech has probably the best front 7 maybe in this college football playoff. You look at Romello Height and David Bailey as the pass rushers. Then you also got excellent linebackers in the second level, Ben Roberts, and then also Jacob Rodriguez, Mr. All-World, won every damn award out there for linebackers this postseason. So Dante Moore, his leadership, his ability to hit the ball vertically down the football field is going to be a big key. And also him using his legs, you just saw right there, that's going to be the big thing, especially on some of those third and shorts, third and fives. If he could take off and run, that's going to be big for Oregon.
Yeah, if I ain't had a dog in the Dogs game, I would be locked in all the way to that one as well. Yep. We appreciate you helping us out as always.
The Cotton Bowl kicking things off there in Dallas, where we have the 10-seeded Miami Hurricanes going up against Big Ten runner-up and number 2 seed Ohio State. Buckeyes installed as a 9.5-point favorite in this game. Total sitting around 41.5, 42 points as we get closer to game day. Fellas, Miami just shut down a talented Texas A&M team that only had 1 loss heading into the playoff, obviously giving up 3 points against Marcel Reed, and that high-tempo offense was very impressive. This defensive front led by Ruben Bain has sort of been Miami's calling card throughout the season. Emory, I'll start with you, man. What has made this Miami defense so elite these first 13 to 14 weeks?
Is because they rallied to the football like no one else, man. When you watch that A&M game, I felt like every time someone from Texas A&M touched the football, there was 3 Hurricanes right there immediately on the stop. And so gang tackling and team defense was helping Miami. And on the other side of the field, you talk about the fact that the defense was able to get these key stops in key situational football moments. So they were making the plays that were there to be made. They turned the ball over when they had an opportunity to turn the ball over. And when they had a chance to get a significant stop, to get off the field, to give their offense another chance, they did exactly that. So if this defense can show up in each game in the postseason, albeit the next one against Ohio State, they have a really good chance of pulling off the upset.
Ben, as a former quarterback, how difficult is it to execute a game plan if you're constantly being harassed, chased from the pocket, which is what Miami expects to do against Julian Sayin? We saw it happen in the Big Ten championship game where Indiana got some early pressure on Julian Sayin, made him make a couple mistakes. Third down wasn't as crisp for Ohio State as it has shown throughout. Julian Sayin, obviously, Heisman finalist this season. You see the numbers there as a first-year starter for Ryan Day and Brian Hartline. 78.4% completion percentage, ranked tops in college football. Obviously, yards per attempt were elite as we're passing touchdowns. But, Ben, I'll go back to you, man. Just how difficult is it knowing that Miami's going to do what it can to make things very nightmarish on Julian Sayin?
Yeah, first off, a 78% completion percentage in college football and high school in the NFL is unheard of. So Julian Sayin's going to have to be at his A game again this weekend. The tough part about, playing quarterback against these defenses when you get into the later stages of the year in the playoffs, whatever level you're playing at, is these defensive coordinators have a mindset, have an agenda that they want to make the opposite quarterback play consistent 60 minutes and make good decisions. So Julian Sayin's going to have to do that against this defense. He's got weapons at his disposal all around him. The biggest thing for him is, can he play with inside of himself for 60 minutes? The big play is always not going to be there. There's going to be some stuff that happens throughout the course of this game that's not going to go Ohio State's way? Can he flush it, move on to the next play? And, when you get to this stage in the year, all you're trying to do is score one more point than the other team. So if it's 3-0, if it's 10-3 like we saw last weekend, Miami and Texas A&M, Ohio State's just got to find a way to win this one against a really talented defense, and this Ohio State offense will be ready for the task.
Yeah, speaking of the potential of this game being low scoring there in Cotton Bowl, Miami offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson was asked this week what he thought about the narrative surrounding the Hurricanes maybe having trouble scoring at times. We saw that 10-point output in College Station. He sort of backhanded it a bit. He pointed to Ohio State losing its game 13-10 last time out in Indianapolis to Indiana, and he says, it's a win anyway, biz the trip mentality. So my question about the Buckeyes, Emory, is this. Do you think it's better to come into the playoff like Ohio State, losing your last game, seeing what the Buckeyes did last season after losing to Michigan and then running the table in the playoff? Or is it better to kind of go in on a winning streak like Miami has right now?
That's a great question. I feel like you could make a case for either one, because what you're going to do as a coach and as a player is to try to find the motivation. So if you lost that game going into the postseason, you're like, man, we got to get back on the right track. This was the wake-up call we needed. But if you won the game going into the postseason, you're like, hey, this shows you we can compete. We have what we need right here in this locker room to make a deep run. So you can make a case for either side. That's why it's always fascinating to see how teams come out and play from either perspective, because it's really all about those 60 minutes, and nothing prior or after truly matters. So if Miami wants to continue to play football this season, they're going to have to come out and play exactly like how they did versus A&M. And if Ohio State wants to play like they did last year, or get to the championship game and win it like they did last year, they're going to have to come out there and play their best game offensively and defensively. We know defensively they show up each and every week. Offensively speaking, this is a tougher challenge. It's going to be a lot like what they had against Indiana. So that'll be the interesting point to watch for in terms of how they have those small, subtle adjustments that didn't work against Indiana. They could find potential avenues of success versus Miami.
One major change for Ohio State this week, fellas, is Ryan Day taking over play calling duties for the first time this season. Obviously, Brian Hartline's the OC there for the Buckeyes. He's splitting time between Ohio State this playoff and his new job at South Florida. Ben, do you think we should expect to see any changes offensively? And how important is it for Sagan to be really comfortable back there with Ryan Day calling the shots?
I think first and foremost, the interesting thing whenever you switch play callers at a point in the season that we're at right now is Julian Sayin has been used to the same voice, the same cadence, the same rhythm in his headset before every play for the last couple months. And now when you switch from Hartline to Day calling the plays, it's a different voice. There's going to be a little bit of a different cadence that the play comes in. So that'll be the first hurdle. But in terms of play calling, I expect this Ohio State team to be a little bit more explosive, a little bit more aggressive on offense. I was at this Big Ten championship game a couple weeks ago between Ohio State and Indiana, and it just felt like there weren't enough shots downfield in the first half to Jeremiah Smith, to Carnell Tate. We saw it a little bit in the second half to open that Big Ten championship. Them just throwing 50-50 balls up to your guys. And when you've got two guys outside like that, it doesn't feel like 50-50 balls. It feels like 75-25 balls in terms of the offense. So I would expect, Ryan Day to come out, be aggressive. He's going to want to assert himself early. Sometimes when you get these teams that have buys, it's almost a disadvantage, right? Because you take a week off, you've been in the flow of the season, you've been playing really well. And so they're going to have to come out, be efficient to start, put some points on the board early. But I expect this offense to be aggressive and look for them to be explosive.
Yeah, I think you may have shown some of your early pick there, Ben, with that Ryan Day love. And obviously, last time he called plays was against that Georgia defense back in 2022. C.J. Stroud, 350 yards passing, multiple TDs in that 42-41 loss. But it is time for predictions. I am going with Miami plus 9.5. I think Ohio State wins the game, just kind of goes in there, AT&T Stadium, gets the win, gets out of there, moves on to the semis. But Miami is a team. If Carson Beck gets hot, Malachi Toney has a nice long touchdown early in that game, perhaps Miami has Ohio State on upset alert. I think it'll be competitive, however, and Miami plus 9.5. That's too many points to give the Canes. Emory, who you got in this one?
First, I wish the game was actually played in a Cotton Bowl. Can you imagine if we played the Rose Bowl in SoFi? There's a big Cotton Bowl sitting right there that we always play the Red River Rivalry every year. Play the doggone Cotton Bowl in the Cotton Bowl. So let me get off my soapbox. I will take Miami plus the 9.5 as well. I think this game will be a lot like what we saw versus A&M. We're going to get a game that's going to come down to the wire. And Miami has that confidence now coming in like, hey, we could play championship level defense offensively. If they just get a smidge better in the passing game, because we've seen the running game really pop off. That's what saved them against A&M. If the passing game could become a little bit better this week, they may have the upset. But 9.5, I agree with you, Brad. Too many points, give it to Canes.
I'm going to be the lone wolf, guys, here and go against both of you. I'm going to take Ohio State in the points here. And the reason I say this, two things. The first being, I'm not sure if this Miami offense only scored 10 points against, Texas A&M, I'm not sure how they're going to get, even to that against this Ohio State defense. This Ohio State defense was the closest thing I've seen to an NFL defense live and in person in the Big Ten championship. The front seven is mean. Caleb Downs in the back end is a total game changer. I mean, look at this, 8.2 points per game allowed this year. I mean, that's basically a touchdown. So if this offense can get back to being explosive, spreading the ball around, Julian Sayin takes care of the ball, I think this could be a field goal game kind of late going into the fourth quarter, and I think Ohio State scores late to cover. Give me